In the final collapsing months of the Second World War, as the Third Reich crumbled under the weight of Allied armies closing in from every direction, a strange silence settled over Germany's highest-ranking Nazi officials, an intentional silence. Orders ceased to make sense. Entire departments disappeared overnight. Records were burned in courtyard fires. And slowly, piece by piece, something enormous began to move across the country. A massive transfer of wealth so large, so coordinated, and so secretive that historians would still be unraveling it 8 decades later. This is the story of the Nazi gold, the hidden treasure of the Third Reich, and the lingering question that still haunts the world: where did it all go? The mystery begins long before Germany's defeat. During the Nazi rise to power in the 1930s, Hitler's regime built an economic machine designed not merely for war, but for plunder. Once the invasions began, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, the Low Countries, France, the Wehrmacht and SS swept through cities with terrifying efficiency. But behind the tanks and ahead of the administrators came special units whose mission wasn't to fight, but to seize assets. Gold reserves, national treasures, artwork, diamonds, rare metals, and anything of value that could be melted down, catalogued, or transported back to the Reich. The most infamous was the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, known as the ERR, commanded by Alfred Rosenberg, one of Hitler's ideological architects. The ERR operated like a massive vacuum cleaner of Europe's wealth. Entire vaults were emptied, private collections seized, bank accounts drained. Jewish families in particular were stripped of everything: homes, jewelry, heirlooms, artworks, generations old. Much of this stolen wealth poured into the Reichsbank, where a dark transformation occurred. Gold bars were secretly reminted, often stamped with Swiss markings to cover their origins. Jewelry was melted down. Watches and precious metals were recast into ingots. The value of an entire continent was being compressed into transportable bricks of gold. But as the war dragged on and the tide turned decisively against Germany, the treasure took on a new purpose. It became an escape plan. By late 1943, high-ranking Nazis began to realize that the war could not be won. Some believed Germany might negotiate a settlement. Others thought the Reich needed a financial reserve to survive post-war chaos. And the most realistic among them, the Himmlers, Görings, and Bormanns, knew they were running out of time. The treasure had to disappear. Not in the sense of being hidden temporarily, but in a way that would make it nearly impossible for the Allies to recover. Gold that could build a new Nazi network abroad. Gold that could fund escape routes for SS officers. Gold that could quietly re-emerge decades later in friendly banks. And so the Great Disappearance began. Across the collapsing Reich, records show trains being loaded in the dead of night. Trucks carried heavy cargo worth millions through forests and mountain passes. Convoys vanished without explanation. The Reichsbank in Berlin transferred enormous quantities of treasure to locations deep in Bavaria and Austria, regions that Nazi leadership believed would be the last to fall. Witnesses spoke of gold bars stacked like bricks inside abandoned mines. Prisoners recalled hauling crates into tunnels sealed with explosives before Allied patrols arrived. Entire shipments left with no documentation at all, hidden intentionally, so only a chosen few knew their fate. The most famous of these stories surrounds Lake Toplitz, a dark, icy lake high in the Austrian Alps. Surrounded by dense forest and steep cliffs, the lake is so deep and cold that sunlight barely penetrates its waters. In 1945, witnesses reported SS trucks arriving with heavy wooden crates. Soldiers loaded the crates onto boats, rowed to the center of the lake, and dumped them overboard. When questioned after the war, surviving SS personnel offered vague explanations: documents, weapons, experimental materials. But the rumors spread. The crates contained Nazi gold. In the 1950s and 60s, treasure hunters descended on Lake Toplitz. They discovered crates, yes, But filled with counterfeit British pounds, part of Operation Bernhard, the Nazi plan to crash the British economy. But not gold. The real treasure, if it ever existed, remained out of reach, hidden in the lake's deadly underwater logs and thick, black mud. But Lake Toplitz was only one part of the story. Another infamous location is the Merker salt mine in central Germany. In April 1945, American forces discovered a staggering hoard inside the mine. Hundreds of tons of gold, currency, art, and cultural treasures stacked in neat rows. They found neatly packed bags of gold teeth from concentration camp victims, boxes of jewelry, and the equivalent of billions of dollars in looted wealth. It was one of the greatest recoveries in history, but even this enormous discovery represented only a fraction of what was missing. In southern Germany, in the rugged mountains near Berchtesgaden, lies the Wehrmacht's Alpine Redoubt region, where Nazi leadership hoped to make a last stand. The area became a magnet for rumors. Mines, caves, and tunnels crisscrossed the mountains, many built by forced laborers. Witnesses reported trainloads of unknown cargo arriving in the region in early 1945, guarded by SS units that vanished afterward. Some said they saw convoys heading toward the Königssee Lake. Others spoke of crates carried into the mountains and sealed behind blown entrances. But the most persistent rumor involves Martin Bormann, Hitler's shadowy private secretary and perhaps the most powerful man in the late Reich. Bormann controlled Nazi finances with absolute authority. He coordinated industrial operations, foreign bank accounts, and SS economic offices. As the end approached, Bormann allegedly orchestrated the movement of treasure out of Germany entirely, south toward neutral countries, especially Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, and Argentina. This theory leads to one of the darkest and most intriguing parts of the story. The idea that Nazi gold became the backbone of post-war escape networks, known collectively as the Ratlines. These networks helped high-ranking Nazis flee Europe, often through Italy into South America. Argentina, under President Juan Perón, welcomed thousands of Nazi fugitives. Did gold help pay for their passage? For their new identities? For the protection they received upon arrival? Swiss banking secrecy played a major role. Throughout the war, Switzerland served as a financial hub for Germany. Gold, much of it looted from victims, flowed into Swiss vaults. These banks, protected by strict secrecy laws, did not question the origin of the deposits. After the war, when Allied investigators requested information on suspected Nazi accounts, Swiss officials often refused. To this day, many Swiss records from the era remain sealed or incomplete. The official estimates of missing Nazi gold vary widely. Some say a few $100 million in today's money. Others argue it could be billions. The truth is elusive because the Nazi economic system dissolved into chaos near the end, and many of the people who controlled the flow of gold died before revealing their secrets. But the trail didn't end in 1945. In the decades after the war, investigators, historians, journalists, and treasure hunters continued searching. Some found small caches, gold coins hidden in farmhouses, paintings discovered in attics, sealed tunnels containing crates of stolen goods. But the big one, the legendary motherlode of Nazi treasure, remained out of reach. One of the most persistent modern leads emerged in 2015 when researchers claimed to identify a hidden train tunnel near Walbrzych, Poland. Radar scans suggested the presence of a long, metal-rich object buried behind a collapsed tunnel wall. Rumors exploded worldwide. The Gold Train of Lower Silesia, a legendary armored train supposedly carrying tons of gold and valuables hidden by the Nazis as the Soviets advanced. The story captivated the world, but after months of excavation, the site yielded nothing. Whether the train never existed, was moved, or still lies buried deeper, remains a matter of fierce debate. Other modern leads point toward Austria's Styria region, Bavarian monasteries that once housed SS units, and even sunken Nazi supply ships deep in the Baltic Sea. Divers occasionally discover sealed Nazi crates underwater, but they rarely contain gold, usually documents, munitions, or personal belongings. Still, the idea persists that somewhere, perhaps in an unmarked mine shaft or beneath a mountain slope, lies a vast treasure waiting to be found. And there are reasons to believe it. Records show that between February and April 1945, Germany's financial movements became incredibly erratic. Massive withdrawals were made from the Reichsbank with no explanation. Gold bars vanished from inventory logs. Files related to SS economic operations disappeared completely. Even the Allies, with extensive intelligence networks, could not fully track the flow of wealth. One of the most intriguing theories suggests that part of the treasure was hidden not by the Nazis alone, but by individual SS officers acting independently. As the regime collapsed, loyalty weakened. Some officers began stealing portions of the treasure for themselves, hiding it in remote locations with the intention of recovering it later. But most never had the chance. Many were killed, captured, or went into hiding. Their secrets likely died with them. Then there is the moral dimension. Much of this treasure was not simply gold. It was the physical remnants of lives destroyed. Jewelry stripped from victims, gold teeth taken from concentration camp prisoners, family heirlooms looted from those who never returned. The gold carries with it the weight of tragedy, trauma, and genocide. And that's part of what makes the story so powerful. This isn't just a treasure hunt. It's an unresolved chapter of human suffering, a reminder of the unimaginable scale of Nazi crimes. Yet the mystery continues to captivate. Why? Because it sits at the intersection of history and legend. The known facts suggest something massive disappeared. The missing gold is real. The chaos of the final days is well documented. But the exact fate of the treasure remains a puzzle with just enough missing pieces to fuel endless speculation. Some believe it was hidden so well it may never be found. Others argue it was quietly absorbed into post-war financial networks, used to fund escape routes, extremist groups, and clandestine political operations. Still others believe portions of it still lie untouched, waiting for the right discovery, one that could rewrite everything we think we know about the final days of the Third Reich. What is certain is this: the Nazi gold mystery is not merely a story of treasure. It is the story of the collapse of one of history's most brutal regimes and the desperate attempts of its leaders to secure their legacy at any cost. It is the story of stolen lives, stolen nations, and stolen wealth. It is a reminder that even when the war ended, the shadows of the Reich continued to stretch across the world. And so the question remains, as haunting today as it was in 1945. Where is Hitler's hidden treasure? Perhaps it lies at the bottom of an Austrian lake, sealed in darkness. Perhaps it rests in a forgotten mine, buried under decades of silence. Or perhaps it has long since been spent, transformed into anonymous currency, quietly circulating through the world without anyone realizing its origin. The truth may surface one day. A construction crew may break through an old tunnel wall. A hiker may stumble across a sealed cave. A researcher may uncover a forgotten document in a dusty archive. Or the story may fade into the realm of myths, a legend forever tied to the fall of Nazi Germany. But one thing is undeniable: the world is still searching. And until the day the treasure is found or conclusively proven gone, the mystery of the Nazi gold will continue to fascinate, disturb, and provoke one of history's most compelling questions. The final treasure of the Third Reich is still missing, and the hunt is far from over.